So like I was saying, since a lot of people aren't here today, whether they're staying home because of the protests or what have you, plus we have students in our master's section, as well as some students even in this class that are mostly attending remotely. I thought I'd go ahead and record this session. Maybe it'd be helpful for somebody, and if not, maybe they'll be bored and help them fall asleep or something. I don't know. But we are continuing with materials. So we kind of left off here last time. It looks like I opened two of these. I don't need two of them. I find that two of them does not usually play well. So last time we kind of talked about how materials work and how they're set up. Obviously there's lots of settings in the materials, right? So I don't expect you to understand or know all that stuff. And we're going to go through some more of it in detail. But do you guys have any questions, I guess, about the base material stuff that we covered on Wednesday? Okay, cool. All right, so we're gonna talk a little bit about UVW mapping and creating our alpha channel and kind of how we can use those together to make some neat stuff. So first of all, as kind of a refresher, we put this picture of Daffy Duck on all of these objects, right? And we did that by making our material, and then up here in our basic parameters rollout right here, putting a map. The little M stands for a map. How about that? So right here's our map, and then we did a bitmap. Remember, that's the type of map we added. You can see it right here, the word bitmap. And then here's the picture where it's just in my downloads folder. Okay, because most people watching this video and everybody in the class that we met so far, you guys are all in game design. This is exactly the setup you would use if you were going to take this into a game. Like again, if you want to bring this into Unity or Unreal or a project you're working on, you would set this up exactly the same way. You'd put the picture you're going to put on the object as a bitmap in the base color and reflection slot. This is our diffuse map or albedo map. Sometimes you'll hear those terms kind of thrown around and used, especially within different game engine stuff. Hey, good morning. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so that's kind of where we left off. Remember that we kind of put our picture here. In 3ds Max, there is a bit of a shortcut to, and if you're using the newer version, I will say, if anybody watching this, if you're using the newer version, this is a little different. This is 2004. The default material type is physical material types. The new default material is PBR materials, which are more standardized. So they're more similar to what you would find in game engines and stuff. So they're trying to make it a little more compatible. But I want to show you guys that there's a real quick kind of shortcut. If you have a picture and you drag it onto material, it will go ahead and add it into the base color slot. Okay. So you guys see that's kind of a quick shortcut. Instead of having to hunt for bitmap like we did, again, you can see bitmap there, it'll go ahead and auto do it if you just drag it over. So again, if I find like, I don't even know, I don't remember what these pictures are, but if I grab one of these pictures and drop it in the slot, boom, it'll go ahead and auto do that for you. So it's kind of a nice thing. We did it the long way because I want you to see how to do it the long way in case you mess it up or you forget or something gets broken. But drag and drop, we'll add it in the same way we did here, putting it in this material slot. Okay. So it looks like this one, because we played with the presets, it's got some settings turned on that this one doesn't. But again, there it is. And so if I grab this object and let's see, we'll apply this material to it. We can kind of see it. So this picture we downloaded last class, and this is a UV checker. So this is a tool that a lot of 3D artists like to use to see if the mapping on their objects looks good. And if you guys remember, does anybody remember what UV or UVW stands for, like why it's called that?
Universal.
You are trying too hard. It doesn't stand for anything word-wise. It just is the X, Y, and Z values of the surface. Okay? So again, we're working in 3 dimensions, just like 3-dimensional space, but 3-dimensional space is labeled X, Y, and Z. When we're talking about UV and UVW space, we're talking about the flat texture surface. So W is tricky because the depth in 2D space gets weird and confusing a bit. But the U and V basically means whether you're taking the picture and sliding it left to right or up and down on the surface of your object, right? So if you think about it, if you slide the picture up, you're going along what would be maybe normally the y-axis, but in here, it would be the v-axis, right? Moving it the u or the v-axis. Does that make sense? So like picture of Daffy Duck, if it's up too high or too low, we could adjust that by moving it along the u or the v-axis. Right? Again, w does exist, but it's this way, and so it's funky. In fact, sometimes people don't even use it. They'll just say uv. They won't even say uvw. So sometimes you'll see the w not used because, again, it's not that it doesn't exist, and there are things like depth maps that can actually add depth to the surface through the material. So it does exist, but it's like day 2, right? Like, I don't want to confuse you too much, so we'll try to think of it easy. So think of this kind of like as if you were doing gift wrap for Christmas, or a birthday, or another holiday, right? Has everybody wrapped a gift with paper?
Yes.
Yeah. So paper is a flat 2D surface, and we're having to wrap a gift that may or may not be flat in a 2D surface. And it's tricky. So if anybody's ever tried to like wrap a ball, right? That's like not in a box. If you wrap any gift that's not in a box, you know what I'm talking about, right? Because if it's not flat, it's hard, right? If it's flat, you just, you fold the edges and it looks good. It's pretty easy to do a pretty good looking gift if it's in a box. But if it's not in a box, like if you're wrapping a teddy bear that's not in a box, what do? Right? It'll be hard. In this instance, we're not just wrapping the bear like, folding the edges and taping and calling it good enough, right? We're actually trying to wrap the entire surface of an object. So imagine trying to cover the entire surface area of that teddy bear with paper. How would you do it, right? How would we cover the entire surface? So there are a couple of different ways, and that's why these look different. So the two kind of major ways that you would cover the entire surface of an object would either be to cut it, like the paper, right? In fact, there's a really cool, if anybody that's papercraft, there's a really cool software that's been around for, almost probably 20 years now, called Photopea, which actually lets you take 3D models and it converts them to papercraft. So you can print the paper out and cut the paper and actually recreate the 3D model out of paper. It's neat. It's been around for a long time. I had a friend once print out Master Chief's armor and then make it and then use like a polyurethane coat on it to turn it into plastic. And so he actually made like armor, like a cosplay armor that way. It was fun, but the sizing wasn't right, so the armor pieces were a little bit funky shaped, like because it was hard to get the sizing right for real life. It was like a like a game model that they try to scale up to real life. But anyway, the same kind of thought. You can either cut the picture, so there's actually edges, and we pretty much always at least cut it. There's cut one spot, and the other thing we can do is we can stretch it. So because we're not dealing with actual paper, right, they can actually stretch around the model too. So when you're doing a model and you're unwrapping like a complex object like a character, right, if you're making a goblin for your game, you'll probably use a combination, almost certainly, you'll use a combination of stretching and cutting to make that 2D surface flat, okay? Has anybody looked at like a UVW map of a 3D model before? I'm just going to look up texture map game model and see if we can find, we'll put goblin. Probably need a little more descriptive terms. Here, perfect. So here is an example of what a texture map for a 3D model for a game character might look like. Right? Has anybody seen a file that kind of looks like this before?
Yeah.
If not, you probably should if you're going to game design. So if not, you do now, right? But this is kind of the sort of thing. You'll see this looking very different depending on what it is and how somebody made it and how they made the mapping. But here you can kind of tell what some of the objects are from looking. Like obviously this is part of the character's face, right? Here is hands probably.
Or feet.
It looks like, yeah, or both. They might be using the same texture for both. There's a lot of reused space. The truth is, the more texture files you use, the more maps you use, the bigger they are, the bigger the overhead for the game too. So depending on what kind of game you're doing or what kind of needs you have for your game, you can reuse stuff a lot. Okay, there's some reasons why you would and wouldn't reuse stuff depending on how the game's built, but I don't want to be going too much detail. Here's another one, and again you can see like obviously this is part of a character's face, although it looks incredibly frightening. Here's like some again clothing items with stitching and things. This looks like maybe a top of an arm. This looks like part of maybe the side of the character. This might be the torso. Again, I'm just kind of guessing because I didn't make this character. You know, there are a lot of game developers will reuse the same mapping. So one of the games that I'm a big fan of, you guys probably have heard of World of Warcraft. Has everybody heard of World of Warcraft at least? I hope so. At this point, the game is like, what, 22 years old? So older than maybe most of you maybe have been in here. So it's been around a hot minute. But one thing that they did in World of Warcraft that's really, really smart, that a lot of game developers do, for example, is all of the game character models, for the most part, use the exact same texture coordinates, which means you can literally pull the texture off of an elf and slap it on an orc. Okay? Now, they don't line up 100% most of the time, but they try to make them line up as much as they can. That's why they can do things like interchangeable clothes. Because if my torso is mapped like this, you know, and then my next character's torso is mapped exactly the same, literally I could take the picture off this one and slap it on that one and it'll match. So face-wise, they don't always match up the characters, but torso, body, legs, arms match up perfectly. So you can literally take the texture from one character or model and put it on another. Now, why this is kind of really interesting in World of Warcraft is the shapes of the model vastly different. You know, again, if you haven't played World of Warcraft, or you're not that familiar, one of the races is kind of these big fat pandas with big giant jiggly bellies. But if you look at the textures on them, they're often stretched and warped because the textures are probably made for like the human model, but they're stretched on the belly of the panda because it's bigger than the human model. Okay. Same thing, unlike the gnomes, because their body shapes are different, the textures kind of stretch and look different. And here I can point that out. Let me look here. We're doing Bing, so you know what you get could be kind of a mixed bag. I'm trying to see the Pandaren.
That's War.
What's up?
I saw the World of Warcraft one.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a good picture to kind of illustrate this. You can kind of see it here, but see the body shape. So you'll see a little bit of stretching through here because, again, it's thicker and a little bit different shape than the human model. And so if you make the texture for the human model, it might look a little bit different. That particular outfit probably was made for the Pandaren model. So that one probably looks better than most of the armor, but they made the whole game like this with all of the races. Let's see. So here is like a picture of the human form. So you can see at different proportions, right? But this same texture that's on this body could be on any of the races. And the texture mapping for all of the races matches. So literally they only need to make one texture and they can apply it to all the 20 races in the game. Again, it's very efficient, smart practice. It's harder in the beginning because making all of them have the same texture map can be very challenging. But the game's set up that way on purpose. So then, again, more work in the front end means easier in the back, right? At any time, they literally can take that same texture map in Photoshop or whatever program they want and make a new outfit for it. One picture, 20 races, like that. So again, really smart planning. Now, it's not the only game that does it. Lots and lots of games do this. Again, one thing I like about that game is it's so old, the older models and textures really warp, and it's easy to see. It's kind of easy to see because it looks janky, but very clever. So again, this is kind of how the texture map looks. As you can see, the texture map for a model can look kind of freaky. Okay? Trying to map the surface of a 3D object flat is not easy. Okay? As a modeler, what you're going to find, there's going to be some clever approaches you're going to have to take, certain ways to set the model up. You're going to see that you only have so much texture space. Some things are going to be bigger because you need more resolution or detail than others. And we almost always have to deal with seams. So actually you can see, here's the model. Oh look, this is the goblin model that we were looking at the texture for. Here we go. Let's see if we can go to this guy's website. So perfect. This guy's got all the stuff here we can look at. So okay, here is the goblin model from the game. What do you guys think?
Looks good.
Looks pretty good, right? I'd say it looks like a game model. There it is up close. Looks pretty nice. Here's the texture map. So you can see explicitly what this looks like versus the other one. Looks like there's this toe, and there may be another toe.
Oh.
It's a weird. This is a weird map. I ain't gonna lie. The location of stuff can be kind of funky. And then look here. This guy maybe even has a tutorial where he's showing you kind of. Oh, there you go. He's painting the model.
Just imagine someone like sending this like a texture sheet to like someone who like job is to apply the texture to a model and then being like having no idea where anything goes.
It's a little bit confusing. The truth is, when you make your own model, it's easier to try to use something. Because if you're chopping up your own model, you kind of are paying attention to where you're putting stuff, and you can make stuff make more sense. In this instance, I imagine this artist chopped up the model with probably little regard to where things were located, because if you actually notice in the video, they're painting all the texture directly on the model. So this artist isn't really worried on whether or not the mapping makes a whole lot of sense, because they're not doing a lot of work in like Photoshop. They're doing the work on the model, right? So as long as it's looking okay on the model, they don't really care what the flattened version is, right? Again, this is a pretty common way of approaching it. It's certainly a lot easier in some ways because you can directly control where everything is. But it can be also a lot harder in other ways. Texture tools to basically paint a design. Again, there's a lot of painting tools and techniques and stuff for all of these things. It just kind of depends on which approach you're doing. Again, this is a cool video. This is a pretty cool video. You can see again painting in all these little details and stuff in the texture. There he goes to the toes. And again, this kind of model is not really using any other maps. It's only using diffuse map. So it's a really quick model that would render fast, that would run very efficiently inside the machine, and looks pretty good. One reason why, if you're ever wondering why game models look stylized like this, it's because they look good and they kind of are like sorry, hold on a moment. My boss is messaging me. Come on. Come on, phone. Sorry, everybody. Just want to make sure there's not like an emergency, but I feel like maybe I should have just answered instead of texting because I'm slow at texting. Okay, I'm just basically saying I'm in class. Okay. He said, oops. I doubt he realized I was in class. All right. So you can see kind of there, the painting the map kind of together, and here's what the map looks like. All right, so I apologize. Okay, so basically this is what we need to do with our models. We have to kind of separate them up into pieces, lay them flat, and put the texture on there. Again, you can either create a texture like this by hand, kind of painting on the model, which is a really kind of fun technique, but can be a little time consuming. If you haven't picked up on that, that was sped up quite a bit. I don't know how long he took painting this thing, but it took a long time. And if you haven't done a lot of illustration work, if you haven't done a lot of painting work, if you haven't worked with a lot in Photoshop, that can be pretty intimidating. Like he's painting in all of the wrinkles and details and fingernails and wrinkles in the fingers and all that stuff. Now it's a goblin, so you can kind of fudge it a little bit, and if it ain't exactly perfect anatomy, I don't know what I'm trying to say, anatomically, if it isn't exactly anatomically correct, you can just say it's a goblin. You know, you can fudge it a little bit. But again, if you're not working on something like that, you're kind of a little more limited. So that's what we're looking at here. These primitive objects all have a different way that texture is being applied to them. You can see on a cube will do a perfect cube map, meaning each of the 6 faces does the entire texture all at once. But it will change it to a cube shape. If your texture is a cube shape, it'll look great. As game developers, you're pretty much going to make every texture in square shape. Pretty much every game engine will support a perfectly square texture in a size that is a multiple of 8. So 8 pixels, 16 pixels, 32 pixels, 64 pixels, 128, 256, 512, 1024, 2048, and 4096. I'm not a math whiz. I have those all memorized because those are the standardized texture sizes for video games. And I've been making video games for, what day is it? Over 20 years. So I memorize these things.
You have to look at the date to know that?
Right, I'm being silly. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I have all that memorized because it's literally like the same size I put in for the last 22 years. Like, now we never used 4096 or 2048 20 years ago. Don't get me wrong, your computer would have caught fire. But those same multiples we still use. And if you're a good game developer, and I don't care what anybody online is going to argue with this, if you're a good game developer, good game artist, you don't need to make your texture size any bigger than you have to. Okay? Now I say have to, and this again I know we're recording, because if you have a really high fidelity game and it needs to look super photoreal and you're making it for PlayStation 5, you're probably working in big textures. But I stand by the fact you don't need to make the texture any bigger than you have to. One of the reasons why games have gotten kind of ridiculous in size is because everybody's throwing these gigantic texture maps in. But you know what? If you're zooming in that close that you're going to complain about the pixels on a rock on the ground, somebody screwed up the game. Like, right? Like, you're not playing the game. You're zoomed in hyper close on a rock on the ground. Like, come on. And maybe I'm a little salty with that, but I don't think we need to have like a 4K texture on dirt. I don't know, right? I mean, it's opinion. But the point is, again, we don't necessarily need that. Here you can see this one's really interesting because it's using a flat plane map on the top, right? But the edges are cut off because it's not a square, it's a circle. On the side here, you can see that it's not only, it doesn't look like it's cut off, it's using a cylindrical map. So the whole thing is stretched as a cylinder around the shape here. Okay, and they all kind of do it a little bit differently. You can see this one cuts it off, chop, chop, chop. This one stretches it. The sphere here, check it out, the top of the sphere. Can everybody see how it's stretching it? This is pretty neat. This is a spherical map. It's kind of basically standardized how spheres wrap the surface around them. Why it's kind of neat and worth mentioning is if you go online, you can actually see, and I apologize if I'm spelling it wrong because I'm not good at spelling and typing, but you can actually go to NASA and they actually have all of the texture maps for all the planets. Boom. There they are. So you can see here, again, I don't know where the exact link is for NASA, but I think I saw it right here. Boom. So here are like the textures from NASA of the different planets. So here, I'll click one. Come on. Here we go. So here it is. Here's like an but this is a sphere map. So if I were to download this thing again, save image, save. Again, it's 2K, so it's going to be kind of high resolution. But if I were to slap it on this sphere, let it in, and ba-boom, ba-ba. You're in Saturn, right? You guys want to make a space game or a simulation of the universe? You can do it like this because NASA's giving you every texture, and all you got to do is throw it on a ball. It's lickety-split. Right? You can put it together. Again, NASA provides these. They've made it these really high resolution, highly detailed maps where they've photoshopped all the different images that the probes and different things have taken from the planet from every different angle, and they've created high resolution maps for everyone. And they just give them away, which is kind of cool too. Again, this one's maybe not as detailed as something that with land masses. So, you know, if we were to pick, here, we'll pick Mars. Here's Mars. Might be more impressive than Saturn. Saturn's not impressive unless you get those rings, right? Where you at? Folder. So we drop Mars in here. Boom. And look at that. There we go, the red planet. I feel like that looks more exciting because it's got all the high details. All right. But as you can see, look how easy you could throw together a picture of a 3D planet. Boom. But it's just on a spherical map. If I throw this texture on this box, it's going to look very different than it on the surface of a ball. Here. So again, it could look pretty cool. Look, here it is on my teapot. But notice on the teapot, you can see again, here's the texture map, and then here's the edge, and the texture map starts again. Okay. That's the UVW mapping. If I were to pick something like this teapot, we can actually view the map and what it looks like as well. So I'm going to add a modifier for this. Now, there are several modifiers. If you hit U, you can jump to them when it comes to texture mapping. All right? The ones you're going to probably use the most are UVW map if your model has no UVW map, which is very common, especially if you're building it out of like a plane. So if you're starting with a plane and you're making a bunch of the model, most of your model probably won't have any mapping. Or the mapping will be so screwed up you can't even use it, which is pretty common too. So adding the UVW map modifier will apply that map to either the whole object, if you have the whole object selected, or part of the object, which can make mapping really complicated shapes easier. So like if you modeled that goblet and then you had to map that goblet, you would not want to map the goblet all at once. Like not unless you didn't really care about the map or how bad it was or what it looked like. Because there's lots of auto mapping tools. They all are rough. In a pinch, works great. If you want to actually have something that looks good or that can even make sense of, you don't want to use the auto mapping stuff. Okay. So again, if you're painting a model, it's not as big of a deal because you're going to be painting the texture on the model anyway. But if you're trying to use a 2D image like this or something you're making in Photoshop, not a great way forward. So UVW map will apply a brand new map to the surface, and I'll show you guys that. That's one you use a lot. So this one now, it's applied a planar map. The planar map is probably the map you will use the most. In fact, this doesn't even look that bad. But you can see along the edges, see this weird stretching? What the planar map basically does, it takes the entire model and flattens it to a flat pancake, like as if it were a flat piece of paper. It doesn't pay attention or care about any of the roundness. The other one that you might use a lot is a box map. A box map can work really well on a lot of objects depending on the texture, but you can see, look at these weird edges. See, can you guys see the edging? The box map doesn't really work well on this one. Spherical map can be pretty great. This one actually stretches it as if it were a sphere around the whole surface. For this model, that's not bad. That actually looks pretty good, honestly. I don't love how it looks in the handle though. See, here kind of looks funky and weird. The rest of it looks pretty great. There's very rarely a single solution. This one's face. This is taking the entire image and putting it on one polygon.
Who would ever use that?
Well, this can be handy if you're using a very small image that tiles. So like this one here, this flooring. If I had just this picture of this one tile, although again you can see they're turned different, so that's not exactly right. Or maybe if I had a picture of 4 of these tiles like this that look good, if this was a very low resolution floor and I wanted to put that picture of those 4 tiles on one polygon, I could do it. Or I could do like a chain link, like object or something. This is not something you use a lot. So who would do that is a pretty valid question because it's not one you use a lot. There are very unique instances where you might do it. You know? But hey, think of clever reuses. You think that one's bad, this one's even crazier. This one's using the actual mapping based on the coordinates of the object. That one would be used for things like special effects and stuff. I can't think of a lot of good reasons other than that. And then shrink wrap and spherical are pretty similar, but shrink wrap is trying to take the entire image and just warp it around it. Very, very similar to cylindrical mapping, but not exactly the same coordinates. So again, spherical is trying to wrap it exactly like you would a sphere. Shrink wrap is trying to push it around the whole surface. And if you look, it actually looks better on the handle. See? I would say the shrink wrap looks really good on the teapot, a lot better than the spherical map. Oh, the spherical map wasn't bad. There's still some weird stretching and stuff. There's almost always, when you're just trying to auto do anything, a little bit of tweaks that need to be done. All right, so that replaces all of the mapping with these new ones. But the other tool we're going to use a lot, and we're going to use it even more today, is the unwrap UVW map modifier. Now this tool will actually let you see the mapping. So let's view it. I'm going to click Open UV Editor, which is this little button over here. And we're going to do this some more today, so don't worry. Here is the mapping, and we'll put our picture of Mars in here. So here's the mapping on the picture. Anybody feel this kind of looks like a hot mess?
Yes.
I would totally agree. This terrible mapping. Again, it works fine. It's fine for the primitive, but this thing's got overlap and stuff. The map goes beyond the bounds of the picture itself, which is not ideal. You know, again, sometimes you can do that with offsetting because it does tile, but it's weird. I don't have any idea why it's mapped that way, but you can view it. Again, all of these objects, if I apply the unwrap modifier, you can see exactly how the mapping is done on them. And if you wanted to, you could fix it or edit it. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong one. I want unwrap. Here you can see the problem with this one. So here's the map, here's the unwrap, and that mostly looks okay, but look at look at this edge here. This entire surface is squashed into a 1 pixel line. That's why it kind of has this funky rainbow color. It's because you're stretching that 1 pixel edge across the entire surface of the top, which is weird, right? It's not a very good map. If I were to change the mapping in here, like let's say I come over here and did like a planar map, look at it now. See? Now I've kind of removed it and kind of moved it over. You might even do something like that where you actually move the stuff to fit on the page. Again, I just click this pack button. But notice this is starting to look like that goblin, right? Like I'm cutting it up, I'm moving the pieces, I'm putting the pieces where I want, and I'm making those adjustments. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and make something a little bit more, fun or complicated than just our primitive objects. So we're going to make a plant today. I'm going to start by picking a flat plane, and I'm going to figure out where I want to make the plant start. I'm going to start at thinking the top view. I usually like the top view best. And I'm going to click and drag and create a flat plane. I'm going to come over here to my modifier tab, and I'm going to change the number of length and width segments. I think I'm going to do, we'll do 0. I guess 1 maybe. 1 by 1. Yeah, we'll do 2 by 1. Okay. Because I want a line down the middle, I think, for this, but I'm only going to do 1 line down the middle, so it's still pretty easy to tell what we're looking at. We're looking at a 2 polygon model, right? And we're going to slap a picture of a leaf on this thing. Now if you look, we actually have this lesson here in the alpha example. So this is how you would do plants in video games. Now, if you're doing a movie, you might still do plants this way if they were in the distance, right? In fact, plants can get even shoddier further they get back. They literally can be just pictures of a tree on a flat surface. And if you haven't ever noticed, some games do that. They do. Pretty much they all do after a certain distance. But if it's really far away, you don't notice or care, right? As you get closer, it swaps it out with a more higher resolution model. That's actually called level of detail, or LOD. And in video games, an artist might create multiple LOD versions of the model. So you might have a character that is, 50,000 polygons and has sweet textures and really great detail. And if you're up really close, looks lifelike and perfect. But when I get far enough away, it'll swap that model out with a slightly lower resolution one. Maybe one that's only 10,000 polygons, which is still a lot, but not 50. I don't have to be a good math whiz to know that that number's smaller, right? So 10,000 is less than 50, and it might even cut the resolution of the texture now. So instead of it being like a 4K texture, it's only a 2K texture at a 10,000 polygon model, right? Again, no math, trying to keep it simple. We all know that 4 is bigger than 2, and 50 is bigger than 10, right? That's what I'm looking at here, right? So as you get even further away, it might replace that 10,000 polygon model with a 1,000 or 2,000 polygon model. And we're talking about like PlayStation 2 graphics, right? But you're so far away from that guy that you can't even tell it's PlayStation 2 graphics because it's that far away, right? Again, if you don't know what I'm talking about, can everybody read what it says on my cup?
Star Wars.
Great. Let me get further away. Can you read what it says on my cup?
Wars.
Can you guys read it?
Vaguely.
Should I keep going?
Wars.
Yeah, we get the point.
Yeah.
I can't even see you
At
now.
some point, there's a wall on the way. But that games also include things on the other side of walls. But after a certain distance, it just looks like I'm holding a blue cup or a bluish cup, right? You might see some white lines on it or something, but you're not going to be able to read it. Same thing's going to be true in a video game. We swap it out with a less resolution one and a smaller, easier model because you couldn't tell the difference, right? If they did a good job, you can't tell the difference. We put it that way, right? Some games, they pop out pretty quick and they're noticeable and it's kind of funky. That happens too sometimes. But, what's that?
I'm looking at you, Pokemon.
The Pokemon?
Some of the more recent games have had some, let's say, performance issues in that regard.
Oh, yeah. Well, the law...
Not switching out the textures when you're far away or close.
So it's like all blurry and yellow, blobby?
Sometimes you get the high resolution version at a high distance away. Sometimes you get the low resolution at a close distance.
Yes, it should not do that.
And sometimes the models do fun things.
Well, that's not okay. That's obviously broken. That's why you're saying it. But again, from a distance, you don't need a high resolution model or texture because it's a blobby, vague Pokemon-like shape, right? And the closer you get, you want the more detail. So for this is how plants are done in games, and even a high resolution game would still be doing this for leaves. Like, you'll never find a game that's really modeling the leaves of a tree, because you would have to have hundreds of leaves. Again, even if you had a super high resolution game that was running on the most powerful computer, the leaf itself, unless it was something important and a special model that you saw up close or blah, 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 would be done this way, okay? So, and this can be done with anything though. So you would have these couple of pictures. This one would be your diffuse map, right? Your albedo map, your picture map, the texture. If you only went with this and the opacity mask, you're probably good, okay? But we can even go further than that, right? We can use other maps as well. For this lesson, we only use the two, okay? We use this for the top of the leaf. Here's the bottom side of the leaf. Here is the alpha channel that we're going to be utilizing. Now, how many people in here have had the Photoshop class? Awesome. You're supposed to have had the Photoshop class. I'm probably going to use Photopea because I don't want to deal with logging into my Adobe account. But Photopea is basically Photoshop. So, in your Photoshop class, did you guys cover channels?
I think so.
No.
What about you? Have you ever used channels? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we did.
So, we're going to do a review, and we're going to assume that they may have mentioned channels, and maybe you guys just missed it. Otherwise, we need to have a serious talk with our Photoshop instructors.
Yeah, they were severely on the side of like the business end of things.
Sorry. So,
Sorry.
review. And some of this might sound familiar. Hopefully, it sounds familiar. That's not wood, but I don't know, whatever. So in a picture, in any sort of thing, we're dealing with additive and subtractive colors. You guys cover additive and subtractive colors in Photoshop or color theory class?
This.
What?
Maybe?
Remind us.
Okay, refresher. So, when you're dealing with a screen, like a video game, 3D modeling, anything with a screen, this guy, this guy, this guy, all of those, right? This is using additive colors, and this guy, which is printed in the real world, subtractive, okay? So when you print something and you go to your printer and you print something out, you guys should know the ink is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. If you don't remember that, it's cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. I'm going to trick you. All right? When you're making something for a screen, we use different colors. Okay? Now the reason we use cyan, magenta, yellow, and black versus everybody went to like primary school and you guys painted with paint before, right? We'll dial it back a bit, right? So you guys remember from being a kid, if you take yellow paint and you take blue paint and you mix them together, what do we get? This should be a really easy question. I'm so sorry. Like, I'm feeling really disappointed in our school system right now. How's it? We got yellow paint, we got blue paint. We put them together and we mix them. What should we get?
Purple. No.
We should go home.
We get
No.
All
Right, we get green, right? Yellow and blue make green. We're at least it's coming back to you, right? Like you may not remember doing it explicitly, but go home, watch some Sesame Street today.
No.
Get back with it. Okay. So no, I'm teasing only a little. But those are your primary colors, which are red, yellow, and blue, right? And then we got secondary colors, which are made by combining primary colors. And again, if you don't remember all those details and the names, that's okay. That's not the part I'm focused on. It's if you take the yellow and you take the blue and you mix it, you get green. We're still all on board, right? If we take the red and the blue, we mix it, we get
Purple.
let somebody else answer, right? Like you know, we're like this is like kindergarten. If we what's the I'm getting confused. If we take the spoiler. If we take the red and the yellow, we mix it, we get
Orange.
yes. Okay, good. You make me feel bad. Thank you. Yes. Everybody remembering this, right?
My brain's not up.
It's been a while. I know. I totally get it. Again, no judgment, but hopefully this is sounding familiar, and if not, we're gonna have a hell of a time. So, you know, again, you don't remember all the names and stuff, but we all know that, right? You know how colors work. We mix colors together, it makes new colors. Cool. In paint, it works differently than light. And I used to love teaching that lesson because I would tell students things like, okay, just close your eyes and picture this. If I poured paint in one hand and light in the other, could you tell me the difference? Picture it for me. Close your eyes, picture it. Your hands are up. Your hands are like this, your eyes are closed. I put paint in one hand, I put light in the other. Could you tell me the difference? If not, you have nerve damage. Because what would be the difference between how would light feel in your hands? Right. How would paint feel in your hands? Right. Thank you. Yes, it's a simple thing. And I say, if that doesn't work for you, put it in your mouth. Right? Would you know the difference if I put light in your mouth or if we put paint in your mouth?
I did.
Again, if not, you might have leprosy or some sort of serious nerve damage or something seriously wrong. You don't need to be worried about pain, right?
Well,
Or you've been drinking too much paint or something.
Well, one's a delicious snack used for, you know, living, and the other is life.
Well, you shouldn't be
What?
eating paint, but you can tell the difference, right? They are very different things. This is the point of this being super silly, but the point is, right, paint, your pigments and light, very different, right? Very different. Because of that, they work different. So when we combine colors of light, it mixes different than colors of paint, right? Additive colors versus subtractive. Here are our primary colors of light: red, green, and blue. And they are different, and they act different than paint or pigments. That's a big deal if you're trying to print something versus how it looks on screen. Okay? For us, we're working with this too. they found out years ago, again, like literally when they first started making color film, like, you know, film, black and white film was first, right? And then they had color movies. The first color movies, they realized they could make a red copy of the movie, a green copy of the movie, and a blue copy of the movie, and literally project all three at the same time. In fact, the old movie theaters even had 3 different projectors. Like, you're talking about real old school, like 3 different projectors, where they would combine and become one color picture. Okay? Then we can combine these 3 different colors to make basically almost every color your eye can see. That's pretty wild, right? So, in Photoshop, you have access to these 3 channels, red, green, and blue, okay? And you have a 4th channel, your alpha channel, which is a black and white channel for transparency. So anything black is clear, anything white is opaque, and anything that's gray is kind of see-through, okay? Now, hopefully this is jogging some memories, I hope. If not, take notes. But inside of Photoshop, I'm just going to make a new file. And again, for all intents and purposes, this is Photoshop. It's like a total online knockoff, but they even made the interface the same, the shortcuts, everything. So if you're in Photoshop, you can literally do this the same way. Again, I just don't want to deal with the licensing. So here I am inside of Photoshop. Inside of Photoshop, or Photopea in this case, here are my channels. Red, green, and blue. Now this one actually didn't add an alpha channel by default, but we can put it in. So here are the 4 channels we have to work in, red, green, and blue. And if I were to put a picture in here, oh man, it is about time already, isn't it? All right, we'll go back to our thing. So if you have to go, please go. But here, I just want to kind of show you exactly what we're doing. So if I were to pick this picture or any picture and bring it in here, you can see again, here are the different channels. Here's what it looks like in red, green, or blue. All those get mixed together to make this. The alpha channel, I don't have one yet. I haven't made one. But again, the examples here, if you want to use them, this one's already made to match up perfect. You can literally download these and work inside of Max with them. But I kind of want to explain. So again, this is the clear part. So anything that was set to white here would be not clear. Oops. Well, it's fine. It's not exactly very good, but here. Boop. And if you were to see them, this is what it would look like. All the black part would be clear, all the white part is visible. And so you can use this to make some pretty complicated looking stuff. If you need to go ahead, there are videos all in the assignment that kind of cover it. So, yeah. But let me know if you have any questions, of course. Have a great weekend. So you can use this to make some pretty cool stuff. Like you can use this to make, you know, anything that would look complicated and be difficult to do without a texture, maybe. So like, let me just look up a fun star image. We'll say, this one will work perfect. Oh, it's got all these weird like copyright things on it. Okay. So I feel like, come on, right? Like, you got to watermark this kind of thing. Although I'm taking it, so maybe they should. All right. So here, I'm just going to bring in this picture. Again, nothing too exciting. We'll put a nice color in there. I don't know what color we want to make our star. A little green. Green bucket. Now we'll grab this and delete and delete, delete and delete and delete. And hopefully it did. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to come over here to channels, grab my alpha, and again, this is a black and white one, so that's the only colors work. What do you mean no clear? Oh, crying out loud. Although really, I don't even need these layers. I'll just get rid of this. Boom. All right. So anyway, you can see here is the clear part. Here's the not clear part. Now, even if I were to pick, let's go with red. just so we're having some fun here. All right, now let me go ahead and save this. So I'm going to save this out as a TGA file. The reason I'm doing a TGA file is because it is a common file type when we're dealing with like video games. Also, it has an explicit alpha channel, which means the TGA file will keep all 4 of these channels inside of it. The red, the green, the blue, and the alpha. Okay? Everybody's heard of a PNG file, and the PNG file supports clear backgrounds, right? That's why you would use maybe a PNG versus a JPEG, right? If you guys have done file types, you might be familiar with some of these. JPEG does not support clear. So if you have a photo that's a JPG file, no clear part, right? PNG can't have clear parts, JPEG can. PNG, though, often has an implied alpha channel. And so what I mean by that is the clear part is kind of saved inside the PNG itself. And when you bring a PNG into Max, it may or may not see or register the clear part correctly. Okay? The target file, TGA, actually has the channel actually in it. It's in it, data-wise. And so because of that, you can actually utilize it as a separate channel completely. Now again, really you don't even need those though. You just need a black and white image and that'll work too. So I'll go ahead and save these as well. Let me go ahead and save our pictures, leaf, leaf, and leaf. So you can see this. Now, in the lesson I do say to create your own channel or picture because it can help make sense of this a little bit better. Okay, I'll use our shortcut we learned today. Where I downloaded my green picture here. And I'm going to drop this here. And there it is. If I apply it, you can see here's the picture we made, right? Any questions on this? This should seem pretty obvious, right? Okay, so there's the picture I made. I've dropped it in. It's a TGA file. Now, I want to come down here to the opacity map, the cutout map, okay, to add a clear part. Now, you can actually reuse a target file. One thing that's really cool about this file type, because it has the alpha channel kind of as part of it, I can pull it over here maybe if I want to use it, and I'm going to grab this exact same one and drop it here. Now, the reason I moved it over is because I want to use the exact same image. I'm doing instance. The reason I would want to do an instance instead of a copy is if I want to change one, it'll update everything, right? Instances are a really great trick if you know you want it to be exactly the same, all right? Copy is the same picture, but it's a different map. And so if I change like the tiling on one, it won't change all of them. Or if I change one thing on one, it may not change all of them. So instance means it's exactly the same. Does that make sense? Kind of a great trick and helpful thing. So I'm going to drop that in here. Now it's still all messed up. See how it looks weird? Because in here, I have not set it to use the alpha channel. So I need to change some settings. So I'm going to change this to alpha, and I'm going to change alpha source to, well, it should be image alpha. Let's see if it renders okay. Nope. All right, not set, I think.
Where is that?
It's in the map properties. That's interesting. I want alpha's gray, I want RGB. It doesn't like it. Why is it not liking this? All right, maybe we should just go back to old school, huh? We offset bump them out. No. Well, I feel like I'm doing a bad job here. Maybe I just need to hit the button. All right, well, I was trying to show you guys that you can use the same image for the cutout map, but for some reason it's not loving it. I don't understand why it's not reading my...
The alpha options, it's just like not there.
All right, let's just do it the easier way. Let's just make it a separate explicit image. It's okay. That was a little bit easier to understand anyway. My fault. We'll just save this out as a separate image, okay? And we can make a JPEG, it's fine. It must be something to do with the physical material settings or something. I don't know. It's okay. I'm just going to get our picture now, and we'll go from there. So downloads, we'll grab our alpha, and we'll slap the alpha down here. And it should work perfect, because I don't know why it's giving me trouble. Alright, so here it is. I use a separate image. I cheated, but that's okay. It's still going to show you the important part, which is that it's using the black and white information from this new image I just made to create the clear part. And that's the part I'm really wanting to show you guys. I made the background red on purpose so you can kind of see that you won't see the red part, and that sometimes it will show you like a little bit of the edge of the red part. That's kind of a common problem, especially when you're using alpha maps. For video games, you want to make sure that you have to change the texture to go beyond the edge of it. Okay? So if you look here, see it's rendering out without that background. And here, we'll put a plane underneath you guys see it even better. Alright. So here, I'll just drop that plane below it so you can see that, again, it's rendering without it. Okay. And as long as you go with a shiny material, it'll look really good too. Like you won't see any of that edging or anything. It'll look just like a flat surface. So again, this is the technique we would use for like leaves and plants, feathers, all kinds of fun things. You'd have part of it clear so you can kind of see it. Again, I think it's this texture. I wish I had 26 on here to see if the PBR settings would be more friendly than this one. That used to work fine in the old renderer, and it'll work fine in a game engine, so I don't know. But you can kind of see it here though. See the clear part. Okay. So that's really what we're doing for the alpha channel. If you didn't want to have that weird red edging, the trick pretty much most game developers and everybody use is you would just go back to your main image, and again I made it red, which is a terrible choice, but I did it on purpose so you can kind of see that. What you would do is you would just, oh, I forgot that key command doesn't work. You would want to make sure green, extend it beyond the edge. So if I did this tree transform.
How do you make the alpha channel again?
In here, you just would go over here, channels. If there isn't one, you could just click new and it'll make an alpha channel. Although, like I said, the alpha channel, using it for the transparency, didn't seem like it was working in this with this material setup. So I need to maybe troubleshoot that a little bit, and I apologize. All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the video only because we're a little bit past our time. Thanks for watching, if you guys are still watching. And if you go to the lab lesson, I have a much shorter video that covers that in there. So thanks.